Hello and welcome to today's episode of Latin American News. Today we are going to be discussing school closures in Bolivia and how the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively affected the students in these school systems. The COVID-19 pandemic has put more than 150 million children in Latin America and the Caribbean out of school due to mandated closures. The shift to online learning has been especially hard for families living in lower socioeconomic conditions. The lack of access to valuable educational resources has left many Latino students feeling the negative effects of COVID's closures especially hard. Specifically, today we will be taking a closer look into the country who had been struggling to cope with a deep divide in educational resources prior to COVID entering our lives. Being that the country of Bolivia had just dealt with the coup of Evo Morales, a socialist leader whose focus was implementing leftist policies and ending American corporational influence. After the removal of this leader, whose interests were for the greater good of the population, Bolivia finds itself especially vulnerable to the negative effects of COVID-19 school closures, especially those who are of lower socioeconomic status. From staff vaccinations to internet access, poorer school districts are struggling to cope with online schooling. In fact, many schools in Bolivia are indefinitely closed due to these disparities in resources. In order to gain a better understanding of this phenomenon, we will check in with our reporter Andrena, who is currently interviewing a school principal in order to get an inside scoop on what these school closures really mean to the individuals they affect.
Hello, this is Andrina, and I am reporting from La Paz in Bolivia. We have Joel, a school principal, that will be sharing with us some resources his school and the school board of education are doing to get students back on campus.
As of now, we are trying to obtain laptops and a source of internet for every student at our school. However, it's quite challenging to do so since most students live in urban towns. This is our primary focus so that students can still obtain an education even if they can't directly come to school. We could start classes online, but not all students have access to the internet or a computer. That's why we are still trying to obtain such things. In terms of students returning to school and having in-person classes, it isn't something that the school district sees possible. The country is still in a pandemic, and our priority is to keep the students safe and healthy.
Okay, thank you for that. And one more question before we ask one of the students' mothers. As we know, schools in Bolivia have been closed for the school year. You, as the school principal, are you doing anything to provide your students with materials to keep them on track for hopefully next school year?
Yes, we currently provide all our students with a packet of work for the week. They still have work to do this way so they don't forget what they've learned so far. Most students, along with a parent or guardian, come to the school at the beginning of the week to pick up their packet and any supplies they may need, such as pencils, pens, colors, erasers, and more. Though these packets are great, but the students aren't learning much, and our teachers acknowledge that. That's why some teachers have decided to visit their students' homes once a week and teach them one-on-one. This way the students learn something new each week. Teachers don't get paid for this thing. This is completely voluntary, and it is definitely a benefit for the kids that aren't understanding the material they're given on in their packets.
Great. Moving on to Karina, a mother of a 10-year-old student here in Bolivia. Are you and your student completing some type of school materials to keep your student on track with their academics?
Hello, no, my child and other students unfortunately do not have good internet access, and there are some students who do not even own a computer, especially those who may be living in poor urban towns. Unfortunately, the Department of Education has decided to completely cancel the rest of the academic school year. There have just been way too many struggles faced, and it was unrealistic to provide the education needed at this time.
Do you believe the school that your student is attending is trying to reopen classes as soon as possible since they have not yet set a date for children to return to classes?
I do not think students will be returning back to school anytime soon, The global pandemic has caused way too many deaths, and the government is struggling to ensure that students can receive the instruction and resources needed, even more for those who may be poor. And there are some families who are facing big struggles and they do not even have electricity at home. There has been no updates or information yet on what things may look like in the near future.
Parents are told they must make sacrifices for their children. What does that mean in your point of view, Karina?
Parents are concerned about Bolivian children and their future. Some parents are struggling to even buy phone credit, and this phone credit is simply just for one phone for the entire family to use. Saving accounts are being used way too fast, and parents simply do not understand what other sacrifices are being expected when they are doing as much as they can during these uncertain times.
As a parent from Bolivia, what are some concerns you and other parents might have?
Some concerns parents like myself are facing is that we want our children to achieve higher success and we want them to become professionals. But many of us are concerned that our children will decide to completely end up dropping out. As it is right now, they are not receiving education or having the routine that they should be. So, given a few months or a year from now, they may decide that they don't want to continue going to school. I understand everyone is trying their best, but things are simply not working out, and the education system is suffering, and students are not receiving the knowledge that they need.
Well, Max, that is all we have for you from La Paz, Bolivia, returning to you.
Thank you, Andrina. I appreciate that. Well, it is apparent that without much government aid through the new administration, that these students who are not of the wealthiest class are struggling to cope with school closures, given that resource insecurities are widespread, even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's hope that soon we will be able to put COVID behind us and begin to tackle the systemic problems plaguing so many Latino countries. Well, you heard it here, folks. That is the news for today, and thanks for tuning in.